chat, and then we'll be able to get started and orientate the efforts where you see fit. Might be finishing off second derivatives, might be starting some revision. So, test Friday next week. Okay, lesson 7, 8 at the end of the day. So we're going to do plenty of study between now and then. Just here's the conditions. We won't have a cheat sheet. Okay, we won't have our graphics calculator. The formula sheet you are permitted to bring, and I'm going to say you bring one. I've on the back of the 2023 test, 2022 test, you'll find them there. Okay, you bring one. I won't print another one. I won't waste paper there. So you've got 60 minutes to complete the test, and it is 50 marks. So between now and then, you've got to make sure you're using your time well. Come and see me if you want to ask any questions or go over anything. Let's talk about the content, and then we'll come over and talk about some tips and so forth. This is the exercises, and this is how we've gone through it. We started with first principles, okay? So you can guarantee there will be a first principles problem in the test. Sometimes there's two. In this test coming up, there's just one. And they often pop up in exams as well, so it's a skill that we do need to know and be comfortable and competent with. Following that, we did simple differentiation. Okay, so a skill we learned last year, we took it a little bit further this year, and then we've learned all of these other rules, haven't we? As far as the chain rule goes, we first learned via substitution. You don't need to do the chain rule via substitution. We only teach that because it will pop up later in the course. We've done the product rule and the quotient rule when we're multiplying functions, when we're dividing functions, when we have derivatives of exponential functions, derivatives of logs, trigonometric, and second derivatives. Okay, so that's how it was ordered, and those are all the topics that we've developed competence around. I think this whole test, though, is reducible to 4 skills. Okay, 4 skills that you need to be able to do. The first is to differentiate. All right, and that's quite a broad skill. So what I mean by that is using first principles and using all of these rules. Okay, so you need to be comfortable with those rules and using first principles. That's the first skill. That's what we're really testing here, isn't it? Differentiate this function, differentiate this function, differentiate this. If you're not sure what to do in the question, just differentiate it, get yourself some marks. Okay, so differentiate. And so here's an example. I'll go through these first 3 skills. Differentiate, then find the slope. In the textbook, they often word it a little bit differently. It'll say something like, find the gradient of the tangent. Okay, remember that just means find the slope. Find how steep it is at some value of x. Okay, so let's give you an example. If we're finding, so the first skill, differentiate, well the derivative of x squared is 2x. All right. Find the slope when x is 3. Find the gradient of the tangent when x is 3. You put 3 into the derivative function. All right, so dy on dx would equal 2 times 3, which is 6. When x is 3, the slope is 6. When x is 3, the slope is 6. The y value would be 3 squared. The y value is 9. The slope is 6. All right, that's what's going on at that point. And then find an x value given a slope. So this gets you to do the same kind of thing. It says find x when the slope is horizontal. So if the slope is horizontal, horizontal means it has a slope of 0. It's not increasing, it's not decreasing, the slope is 0. So that means the slope function is equal to 0. We're saying what values of x make that true. Okay, the derivative function equal to 0. What values of x make that true? In this circumstance, it's horizontal when x is 0. And like we know that from the function, okay? Y equals x squared, this is what it looks like on the Cartesian plane. And it's horizontal when x is 0. It's not increasing or decreasing at that point. Very good. Okay, so I think they're the 3 skills, right? They're 3 skills that we've covered a fair bit. And then these solving for unknowns, they're the higher order, more sort of abstract reasoning that we've talked about. So as far as resources go, we've got that sheet. Everyone's collected that from the back, so differential calculus, and we've got 7 questions there of higher order complex reasoning problems involving unknowns. That's the last skill. Okay, so you're differentiating, you're substituting numbers in, but it takes it a little bit further because they're simultaneous equations to solve. So I think this test is reducible to those 4 skills, right? So that's what we'll focus on. Now, so as far as resources go, we've got I think the best place to have a look at the resources is on page 57 of your notes book, and I've summarised there for the calculus test and for the applications of calculus test. So we've got, firstly, it talks about what the requirements are for the test, but then we've got chapter 2 review sets. So at the end of chapter 2, you've got the blue boxes, you've got review set 2A and review set 2B. And what this is a complete review of all of chapter 2. And we've seen these pop up in 11 methods, right? And what it will do is it will ask the questions, but without a context. When you're doing exercise 2D, you know I need to use the product rule because I'm in exercise 2D, which is the product rule. What's good about these review sets is you're confronted with a question and you have to wrestle with it. What rule do I use here to differentiate it? Okay, so that's they're the review sets. They can be a starting point, they can be a finishing point. It's up to you how you use them. And then following that, we've got 7 tests. Okay, so I think most people have taken them all. A couple of people have just taken the later ones. So let's talk about these tests then. And maybe the first thing to say is that as far as these tests go and the worksheet on higher order reasoning, you will find solutions on the OneDrive. So if I just open up that folder, it's my 12 methods shared folder. In tests, okay, our first test is differential calculus, and you'll find all of the tests there. And then in our solutions, work solutions. And you guys are lucky because I've just gone through and my handwriting's a little bit messy, so I've used a math to text thing, text to math, and so it's all nice and neat and you can read it perfectly clearly now. All right, so have a look through there. They're going to be worked solutions. That's the way of seeing that you're correct. Now let's scroll through one of these tests for you then, even if we just keep the solutions open, and maybe I'll talk about the 2023 test as well. So let's talk about a few things that pop up in here. All right, let's look at the first page. Differentiate the following. There is no need to simplify your answer. So full marks you'll get even if you have not simplified it. You won't get penalised for simplifying it, but you get full marks just leaving it as a jumbled mess. Okay. Now that is always going to be the case for this test. The only circumstance you need to simplify, all right, even with there's a first principles problem, and at the moment I'm just scrolling through the 2023 test. Everyone's got a copy of that. The only time you need find the derivative, find the second derivative. There is no need to simplify your answer. Find the values of a and b. Okay, find the exact value when the slope is 6. Let's see. Let's find one. This is the only time you're required to simplify. Given the function, show that the derivative is this one. Okay? So when you differentiate this using the quotient rule, it will be a jumbled mess and you need to perform the algebraic manipulation such that it matches up with what you've got here. Now, it might be you're doing this question and you sort of can't get it to that stage, but that's absolutely fine because you can still use the derivative function that we provide you with in part B. All right, in fact, you're expected to. Like, we're telling you, this is the derivative function. Part A, show that as that, and hopefully you get all the marks. Maybe you get 2 or 3. And even if you can't, you can still answer these later parts. And we'll always set a test up like that, such that even if you can't get part A, you won't be penalised and lose marks on part B. All right? Now, that's a good time for me to talk about, you saw me having a good wrestle with that question that we were going through yesterday, and I sort of got stuck for a bit, all right? Now, in a test situation, get stuck, all right? Wrestle with it for a minute, and if you can't see a solution, move on. The most important thing I can tell you about a test, 1 mark per minute, okay? So if a question's worth 5 marks, don't spend longer than 5 minutes on it, all right? You see, we've got 50 marks to get, and you've got 60 minutes to do it. So if you do 1 mark per minute, it gives you 10 minutes at the end to check it. And I want to stress this to you. Not all marks are equal. What I mean by that is some marks are really easy to get. Okay, think about question 1A, simple differentiation. Really easy to get, 1 mark. You have to get the easy marks, okay? And so my expectation is get the easy marks and then try to get the harder marks. You leave them till last, because if you spend all your time focusing on the marks that are hard to get, you'll miss out on the easy ones. Get the easy ones and then work up to the hard ones. So a good example is like you saw me yesterday, you know, if I was taking this test, we're breezing through, and then we get stuck, okay, with that LN, I don't really know what to do here, move on, okay? We've got marks already because we used the information and we tried to bring it together and we got stuck. We've got sort of 4 out of 5 marks. We're missing one step. Move on, get marks elsewhere, and then with that final 10 minutes, that's when you can come back and crack it. Okay, now I want to tell you like a hack about maths as well, is that whenever you're confronted with a problem, like let's just do something pretty basic, okay, something like this. The answer to this problem is right here. The answer lies in here. And all maths is a series of rules. All you're doing to this is manipulating it using a series of rules. And so the answer lies here. All you have to do is get the rules in the right order. Okay? That's what it comes down to. It's just an algorithm. Algorithm 1, algorithm 2, algorithm 3, there's my answer. The answer lies in here. Alright? So it's not like you're creating something. All you're doing in maths, all of maths is just following the rules. Here's the answer. Alright? That's all maths is, breaking it down to get the solution. So the answer is there. We talked about simplifying, we talked about solutions, and we've talked about these resources. Solutions for the higher order thinking are in the extra resources folder. Alright, and I emailed them out yesterday as well. If you can't find anything, send me an email and I will talk to you about it. Alright, I think that's a pretty comprehensive review of what to expect and where to orientate your efforts. You will find in some of the tests, alright, like a good example might be, can everyone open the 2022 test and go to the last question? So everyone's got a copy of that one. I'll just look it up and copy right now. So the question, so there's a formula sheet on the 2022 test. Just bring the formula sheet. Alright, so question 9 there. Okay, consider the function ln of sine of x. Now, when I give this kind of question, all right, I don't expect you right now to be able to solve it. This is a hard problem, and whenever something really challenging is going to pop up, we always make sure we prepare you for it. Okay, so it's not that we'll go over the same question, but we'll go over skills that are similar that you can expect. All right, so when you're going through the practice test, don't be super alarmed when you're confronted with something like this that says, hence state the domain, all right, because in previous years that's something that we would prepare the students for. So in coming lessons, there'll be a few things we will talk about as a group, about some of the challenging skills in the test, but other than that, it's up to you where you're going to direct your efforts. Finally, maybe I'll just talk about one useful strategy to think about as you're approaching a test, and it's like a goal setting thing, I suppose. So if someone asks you what goals do you have in the next year, or it might be in the next week, or it could even be in the next 5 years, all right? So you can think about it in terms of any temporal location. And if someone was to ask me, all right, let's paint the long-term picture. If someone was to say to me, what's your goals in 5 years? I go, I don't know what I want to do in 5 years, you know? I don't know what it's like. And so here's a really cool way to think about goals, right? Is I'm going to think about my life in 5 years' time, and I'm going to think about the worst possible scenario my life could be. All right, so I'm going to paint this absurd picture for you. In 5 years' time, let's say the worst possible scenario is divorced from my wife, not allowed to see my kids, you know, got unhealthy, addicted to drugs and alcohol, lost my job. You can think of all of these ways in which your life would be really horrible, right? That's really easy to do. And so then my goals are the opposite of that. All right, so my goals in 5 years are the opposite of that. I want to have a strong, healthy relationship with my wife and my kids, and I want to have a healthy body, and I want to be competent and successful in my job, and I don't want to be addicted to drugs and alcohol. All right, so all of a sudden I've got a very clear picture of what I want. So I've talked about 5 years, but you can think about next Friday, there's a test coming up. All right, what do I not want to happen? I don't want to fail the test. All right. So think of my circumstance, all right? I'm at the pub on Friday afternoon having a few beers with some friends, and they say, let's have another beer. And I think to myself, now if I have another beer, that would put me over the legal limit, and I might be able to get away with it. I might be able to drive home and not get caught. But if I do get caught, then I've lost my license. And what path does that take me down? Does it lead me to the future I want, or does it lead me to the future I don't want? Okay? Similarly, your test next week, all right? You go home tonight. I could do some homework and study for the test next week, or I could keep scrolling through TikTok videos. Which direction does the action lead you to the result that you want? So I think that's a cool way of thinking about goals. So now every time you pick up your phone, hopefully you're disgusted by it and you just want to do some maths homework. All right, but I'll leave it up to you guys. We got 13 minutes left. I'll float around and address any questions you got, but that's all from me.